I am now going to introduce to the stage someone I'm uber excited about being in conversation with. Activist, broadcaster, entrepreneur, and all-round human dynamo. The issues of trans issues have been really headline news. And one of the people who's really trying to counteract misreporting, misrepresentation, let me welcome Charlie Craggs. Welcome. Hello, everyone. So, all those descriptions, they fit you.
You describe me better than I describe myself.
That's all right, I'm your PR. So, yeah, just tell us a bit about yourself, growing up.
Yeah?
Yeah, a bit of your, yeah.
Okay, so I'm Charlie, everyone. I run a campaign called Transphobia, where I travel around the UK with a pop-up nail salon, and I offer the public free manicures for the chance to sit down and have a chat with a trans person. So while I'm giving them a free manicure, they can kind of ask me whatever they want, and it's just kind of a bid to humanize the trans issues and to help people to understand that we are just human and that we're not kind of like what the Daily Mail are painting us to be, or what pretty much every paper, Guardian, I'm talking to you, I saw what you wrote yesterday. I thought the Guardian were on my side, but clearly not. But anyway, it's about just showing that trans people, yeah, thank you. But yeah, it's just about showing that trans people are just people, yeah. So I've always kind of known, I guess, about my past and stuff. I've always known I was trans, really. I didn't know I was trans, but I knew I wasn't normal. I was about 4 when I started expressing to my mum that I wished I was a girl. Obviously, I didn't know what trans was when I was a child, but I guess if I had a word for it, I would have known. But and then it's probably when I reached like my teen years and I started seeing like trans people like Nadia on Big Brother and stuff. There wasn't much representation, and what there was mostly bad. But when I saw Nadia on Big Brother, who was a trans woman, I was like, that's what I am. Like I knew straight away, and I was about maybe like 13, 14, and then I only kind of got the courage to take the leap of faith to transition when I was about 21, because I was really suicidal, and I just was like, I knew that being trans would be hard, but I was like, I'm either going to kill myself or I'm going to transition. I thought, I'll try and transition. If I can't do it, then I'll kill myself, which sounds really bad, but I'm still here, just for now. Yeah, but I'm still here.
So talk to us about transition. You know, people hear these terms, but what's that actually mean in practice?
Okay, so a trans person is someone who their physical kind of like biological sex, whatever gender, doesn't match up to their psychological kind of like how they feel on the inside. So it's kind of like disparity between the two, and so I'm a trans woman, so I was born male. I don't like being, when people talk about us in the media, they say I was born a man, and it's like, no one is born a man. Like, women don't push out men from their vaginas. You like, men and women, their gender, their social constructs, man and woman, there's male and female, but man and woman is a very different thing. So even when I was pre-transitioned, you would never describe me as a man, especially the people who call me a man now. They're the sort of people who would call me a girl before. So before I transitioned, that's the reality, is that they'd be like, I got bullied for being a girl since I was about 7, and they were saying it in a mean way, and the same people who bullied me for being a girl are calling me a man now. So there you go. So that's what it is, yeah. But that's what a trans person is.
So tell me about reaction from, friends and family.
Yes, I'm actually very, very lucky. So a lot of trans people are disowned from family and often friends. I had the cards stacked against me, so I'm Irish, working class and Catholic. So I think the only other thing that could have been against me is being a person of colour. But basically, I had a lot of cards stacked against me, but my family were all really good. But it's not the case for most trans people. A lot of my friends who are trans were disowned, chucked out. So yeah, basically what I do is kind of a reaction to this culture of transphobia and just like helping people to understand, because I sit down with a lot of mums and stuff, and it's like it gives them a chance to kind of understand and to like just, because bigotry comes from not understanding, like it comes from fear and misunderstanding, and like if you were to sit down with someone who's trans, you would see that there's nothing to want to chuck your child out over, or there's nothing, and you'd understand how natural it is and how there's nothing to be angry or scared about.
So you went through school, you went through university. How did people behave towards you?
Yeah, so I came out in my final year of university. I don't like saying come out, actually. I like saying accept myself, because like I said, I'd always really known, but I just didn't accept myself. Like, we live in it's got a lot better. It's still not great, but we live in quite a transphobic society, and back in 10, 12, 13, even prior to that, obviously, but that's when I was kind of aware that I was trans, and I didn't want to come out because I was just like, I don't want to be trans. Like, my life was hard enough as an effeminate male, whatever. So I was getting so much abuse as it was. I was like, the amount of abuse I'm going to get is going to like triple. So I'm like, I can't take that. And like I said, I'm from a council estate. I went to an all-boys, tough school, thanks, mum. So like, I'd never had like an easy ride. So yeah, like it was hard. And like, yeah, the amount of abuse I was getting, especially in the early days of my transition, I was just like, I need to do something about this, because we weren't talking about it as a society back then. So I set up my campaign, No Transphobia, 5 years ago next month, in 2013. And it was because of the amount of abuse I was getting and about how it just wasn't talked about. And like, I was Googling statistics, and when I transitioned, I now had like a 1 in 12 chance of being murdered in my life. And if I was a woman of color, a trans woman of color, it would be 1 in 8. And the statistics have got worse every year. People think everything's fine now that we have Caitlyn Jenner on the cover of Vanity Fair, but the murders are going out every year, and they're like coming. Even like, we had a trans girl murdered recently here in London, and like my dad knew her and stuff, and it's like, she lived near me, and it's like, it's very, very, it's hard. And so what I do was kind of a reaction to the fact that there was no conversation around trans issues and around transphobia, and about trying to open up the conversation and using nails as a catalyst for that conversation, because really, I don't care too much about nails, but I do care.
You liked mine.
I like yours.
Yeah.
I do like, I'll take like, when Boots come to me and want to do like a nail brand with me, I'll take it. But like, I don't actually care about nails too much. For me, it's much more about conversation, what I do, because it's about, while I'm doing your nails, the nails are a way of like engaging in conversation with people who wouldn't normally be engaged in that conversation around trans rights.
So talk about the kind of things that people say to you, the conversations that you have.
Actually, it's really interesting how they've evolved over the last 5 years. So when I started the campaign 5 years ago, it was much more like, so what is a trans person? Like, because people literally just did not understand anything. They didn't understand the difference between me and a drag queen, or like things like that. And now I feel like the kind of general public's kind of basic understanding has like really come a long way. So they kind of understand what it means to be trans now. Everyone kind of knows what trans means, because it's everywhere. But it's more questions about my humanity now, which I think is a positive sign that people are kind of seeing me more as human. So we're definitely moving in the right direction, and I'm definitely moving towards retirement, because this isn't gonna be needed, hopefully, for too much longer.
So you've had I think you had a famous person recently, if I could see the slide.
Yes, it's Richard Branson, guys, my sugar daddy. No, he's gonna pay for all my surgery. No, he was really nice though. Yeah, so I got booked to do his nails. He did like, I get booked to do a lot of events. So basically, just to explain, I don't just like pop up randomly around the UK. I get brought in by museums and festivals and universities, and brands bring me in to do brand events as well. So I got brought in to do Richard's the other day, and he just like had a chance to like ask me questions, and it's really nice to think that hopefully, because what I always say is like ripples make waves, so hopefully if I'm having this conversation with him, it will like seep down into the kind of lower levels of his, like the infrastructure of his business and things like that.
So what can I'm definitely much more aware of negative portrayals and media misrepresentation, transphobia.
Yeah.
What can we as the public do, as us here in the room do, to be advocates or challenge or be your spokespeople? You know, what do you want, what would you like to see from
I think,
people?
What we need is more people to be on our side, and I always talk about calling things out, and this doesn't have to be in a confrontational way. I'm not asking you to have like fist fights with people, but what I am asking is that if you want to be, you're on our side. And like, so I don't know how to say it, let me think. So like, for example, like if you were to see like one of your friends post a status on Facebook that was transphobic or whatever, or was calling, I don't know, Caitlyn Jenner, or me, a man, or whatever, because that happens quite a lot. to like call it out, and you can do it in a way that's like not even like confrontation. You can be like, oh, that's not really cool, or like whatever, like something like that. Or if you're in the street and you see, and you're with your friends and you see a trans person, and then like one of your friends is like being a douchebag, or you're at the Christmas dinner table and your problematic uncle says something about trans people, because we all have a problematic uncle. Call them out. Like, we need people to call them out. Like, and that's the only way that it's going to stop, because I always say like, prejudice and bigotry and all these types of things, they only blossom in places they're allowed to. If you call it out in that space, whether that's a friendship or at a dinner table or in a school or in a business, if you call it out, you've let people know this is not allowed here. Like, we don't tolerate this, because people will make these transphobic jokes and like whatever, talk about be transphobic if they know they're allowed to be, and they think that's a place for it. And if you call it out, it puts a stop to it there and then, and that won't, like, it won't foster that bigotry anymore, because you've said we're not allowing this here. And it's the same with like thank you, but it's the same with anything. It's the same. We need people who aren't affected by, like, in the same way that if I was in a space like that video just said, and I was in a space, I would use my white privilege. It's like when you're in a space and everyone thinks that no one is of that part of that community that you're talking about. We need people who aren't from that community to be the ones to say, actually, this isn't allowed. And I've done that a million times. I've cut family off because they're racist. Like, you shouldn't allow it. I wouldn't allow any prejudice. And I wish that people would do the same.
So how do you counter the media representation? I see you're working for Vice, you're working with other people. So tell us a bit about what you're doing to take your advocacy beyond the nails, wider.
So like I said, what I do with the nails is all about conversation, and obviously you're only able to have so many conversations at a time, because obviously you can only do one person's nails at a time, and obviously I've been doing it for a long time, but I can still only do so many nails by myself. So I've tried to take the conversation further by, I'm very lucky that I get to do a lot of press work and stuff, so I don't know how to say this without boasting, but I've been in like pretty much like every newspaper and magazine like ever, and like talking about trans stuff and just taking that conversation further, and just like bringing in new demographics, because you don't want to just be shouting into the echo chamber and into the same. And that's why I started doing more diverse events, like less like LGBT feminist stuff and more like universities. So when I pop up at a university, there's like straight boys interacting, and there's like people or when I do a museum, there's like old ladies who don't even know what trans means, like sitting down with me. It's about going outside of your echo chambers and speaking to people who need to hear it. And that can be uncomfortable, but that's where the real kind of reward is. So that's how I try and take the conversation further, and then using the media as a tool to do that as well. So like when I do stuff for like Vice, I know that 12-year-old laddie boys are reading it because they're messaging me afterwards and telling me to kill myself. But the point of it is that they're reading it, and like they're the worst ones, but there will be boys who read it who did get something from it.
How do you deal with the trolling? How do you deal with viciousness?
I troll them back. I keep existing and keep flourishing, and it annoys them so much. It's true though. Yeah. As someone who's been bullied literally my whole life since I was about 7, I got called like a fag the first time when I was 7. I've learned that the best way to beat bullies or trolls is to like not do what they like, to not give in and not to change, and to like keep, because it annoys them so much. That's why they're calling you a fag. It's because you're so proudly a fag or whatever. And it's like, if you keep being a fag, you're going to annoy them so much more than if you like argue with them or fight with them. So that I'm a fag with a book deal now, and I'm a fag who's got a lot more followers than you, and I'm a fag who's on BBC News. So good for me. That's the best way to be. Yeah. Kill them with your success.
Kill them with your success, yes. Going forward, what's next for you? You know, you've got the nails, but maybe it's not, books. Tell us about what you've been up to and what next.
So I bang out a book this time last year, actually, I think it's around this week last year, called To My Trans Sisters, which is a collection of letters from trailblazing trans women who are offering advice to girls and women who are starting their transitions or on their transitions. So it's from people like politicians and scientists and like celeb types, basically all just like sharing what they wish we knew. So that kind of taking that conversation I keep talking about even further. And then to take it even further, I've just set up a nail brand. So I basically have launched a set of like different sets of nail decals, which are like nail stickers, and they're all thematic. So the first kind of set we've launched is a lobster themed set, and it's basically because so you know emojis. There's no trans flag emoji, even though it's the most requested one every year. And basically, it sounds very silly, but representation matters. And it also matters that it's the most requested, and every year it gets overlooked for silly things. Like, they put a pirate flag on this year over the trans flag. Like, how many trans people are there in the world and how many pirates? Like, but apparently they matter more than we do. So that's why I'm doing it. So basically, they're putting a lobster on this year as well. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, they ignore us every year. So basically, I'm hijacking the lobster because, wait. Because basically lobsters are kind of trans. They're genandromorphic, which means that they can have both male and female characteristics. So until we get a trans symbol, we're hijacking the lobster. And there's a petition, change.org. None of you are leaving until you sign my petition. If you Google, I think it's in my bio on all my social media. There's a link to my website, and it's in there. It's called Claws Out for Trans, and basically, So it's all about taking the conversation further through nails and using the nails to kind of raise awareness and funds around trans issues. So this is our first fight, and there'll be other fights. Great.
Well, I want to thank you for everything you're doing.
No, thank you for having me, Jude.
It's a pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure. We're going to make sure we share the links to your book and
so
all
much,
your
Jude.
work. And you've got lots of ambassadors for you as well. And keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. You too, Jude. Clap for Jude. Yes, Jude. Thank you, Jude. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.